Britain has fired a newly developed main battle tank for the first time in more than 30 years, and only 148 of them will ever exist. On January 20, 2026, a Challenger 3 prototype fired its main gun, with a crew inside the turret. Rheinmetall BAE Systems Land announced the milestone alongside the Ministry of Defense the same day. The last time Britain did this, the Challenger 2 was still a prototype, and the Soviet Union had only just collapsed. Poland now fields 897 tanks and is heading toward 1,800. Russia has lost more than 3,500 tanks in Ukraine, the heaviest confirmed armor attrition of any war since 1945. Britain will answer that with 2 armored regiments and a training fleet.
So why did the British Army choose to rebuild 148 of its own worn hulls when finished tanks were already rolling off production lines in Germany and the United States? The Challenger 2 was never a bad tank. It was an isolated one. Britain built around 386 of them, and by 2016, the fleet in service had fallen to 227. The Ministry of Defense still listed 288 tanks in its equipment statistics in April 2025, but that figure is widely treated with skepticism. Independent analysts believe only around 150 to 160 were genuinely fit to fight. The rest had been stripped for parts to keep the others running, and many of the remaining hulls were found to be heavily worn and affected by structural defects. Then there was the gun. The Challenger 2 carried the L30A1, the last rifled main gun in NATO service. It fired bespoke 2-piece ammunition that nobody else in the alliance used. When Britain lost its large caliber gun and ammunition manufacturing capability in 2016, that ammunition became a finite stockpile with no production line behind it. Every round fired on a range was a round that could never be replaced. A tank with a magazine that cannot be refilled is a monument. The replacement decision was itself years in the making. A competition to extend the life of the Challenger 2 ran between a British and American partnership and the German firm Rheinmetall. And in March 2021, Rheinmetall confirmed that it had won. The contract, worth £800 million, was signed that May, and the upgrade was renamed Challenger 3. The war in Ukraine removed any remaining comfort. Britain donated 14 Challenger 2s in early 2023. In September of that year, near Robotne, one of them was immobilized by a mine and then finished by a loitering munition. It was the first Challenger 2 ever destroyed by enemy action in roughly 30 years of service. The crew survived. The lesson did not soften. Britain needed a tank that fired ammunition the rest of NATO still manufactured, and it needed to build it from hulls it already owned. The answer is the Challenger 3, and almost everything above the tracks is new. The centerpiece is the Rheinmetall L55A1 smoothbore, 120 millimeters in caliber and 55 calibers long, with a barrel more than a meter longer than the L44 fitted to older Leopards and to the Abrams. The A1 designation refers to a raised pressure limit from 672 megapascals to 700. That means the gun can safely fire the newest generation of tungsten penetrators, including the DM73 round and the latest kinetic energy ammunition Rheinmetall has qualified, which the manufacturer says delivers around a fifth more performance than the rounds it replaces. It also means British tanks, German tanks, and Dutch tanks now draw from the same ammunition supply. In a long war, that single change matters more than any armor figure. The gun fires programmable ammunition as well. The DM11 airburst round can be set from inside the turret to detonate above a target rather than on impact. That means a trench line, a rooftop missile team, or a fortified building can be attacked without a direct hit. The turret is entirely new, fully digital, and built around a hunter-killer architecture with independent day and night sights for the commander and the gunner, plus automatic target detection and tracking. That means the commander can find and hand over the next target while the gunner is still engaging the current one, which compresses the time a tank spends exposed in the open. Protection arrives in 2 layers. The modular Epsom armor is fitted externally, and the Farnham package sits inside the structure.
And because the blocks are modular, damaged sections can be replaced in the field and improved packages fitted across the tank's service life. Above that sits Trophy, the Israeli active protection system, which uses radar to detect an incoming missile, calculate its path, and fire a countermeasure to destroy it before impact. It is the same system carried in combat by Israeli and American tanks. But the most revealing figure in this design is not the caliber of the gun. It is 55 degrees. That is roughly the upper elevation limit of the Trophy countermeasure launchers. And above that arc, the tank is protected by armor alone.
Against a missile fired from a tree line, Trophy is proven. Against a small drone diving vertically onto the engine deck, footage from Lebanon in 2024 showed tanks fitted with the system being struck anyway. Britain has bought excellent protection against the threat that dominated the last war, rather than the one that dominates this one. Underneath, the news is thinner. The Challenger 3 keeps the CV12 engine, uprated to around 1,200 horsepower, in a hull that dates from the 1990s. The Leopard 2A8 and the M1A2 SEP V3 both carry 1,500 horsepower. That means a tank of roughly 66 tons at core weight accelerates more slowly, works its transmission harder, and holds less headroom for the extra armor and electronics that every modern platform accumulates. The suspension has been upgraded to a third-generation hydrogas system, which improves the ride, but it does not add power. If you want to follow this program as it moves from the trials ground into service, subscribe to the channel. The comparison that decided all of this comes next. Britain had 3 realistic options, and 2 of them were arguably better tanks. The first was the Leopard 2A8. It carries the same L55A1 gun. It arrives with Trophy integrated from the factory. It has 1,500 horsepower, and roughly 350 have now been ordered across 5 NATO countries. Buying into that fleet would have placed Britain inside the largest shared armor logistics pool in Europe. It failed on cost and on industry. A Leopard 2A8 runs from roughly 20 million euros against German targets to more than 34 million euros per tank in the Czech contract. Converting a Challenger 2 hull costs about £5.4 million under the £800 million program. For the price of the entire British fleet, a European production line would have delivered a fraction of the number. The second was the American M1A2 SEP V3. It is the most combat-experienced tank of the 3. Its turbine gives it ferocious acceleration, and Poland ordered 250 of them. It failed on sustainment and on sovereignty. The gas turbine consumes fuel in a way British logistics is not built around, and almost every pound spent would have left the United Kingdom. The third option was to keep the Challenger 2 and change nothing significant. That option died with the ammunition line. So the winner was chosen for reasons that have very little to do with which tank is best. Rebuilding kept the work at Telford, supporting around 650 jobs across the supply chain, with a £25 million turret armor contract at Pearson Engineering in Newcastle, supporting 280 more. It makes the Challenger 3 the first British-built tank in 22 years. It sits alongside a new large-caliber gun barrel factory at Telford, a project worth more than £400 million that restores the manufacturing capability Britain lost in 2016. Britain did not simply buy a tank, it bought back an industry and attached a NATO standard tank to it. The criticism is that it bought too few of them. Under the Type 44 structure, an armored regiment fields 44 tanks, 3 Sabre squadrons of 14, plus 2 in headquarters. 3 regiments consume 132, which leaves 16 for trials and training, and nothing at all for battle casualty replacement. The defense analyst Robert Clark, in work introduced by the former head of the Army, Lord Dannatt, argued that the 3rd United Kingdom Division needs 190 tanks and is therefore short by 42. He recommended buying 50 more for around £650 million. Set that against Ukraine, where Russia has lost more armor than its entire pre-war operational fleet, and the arithmetic becomes uncomfortable. In Normandy, British and Canadian forces lost a number of tanks comparable to Britain's entire future fleet in a matter of months. What the decision reveals is a doctrine. Britain has chosen to be a precise, digitally networked contributor inside a NATO force rather than an independent armored power in its own right. That works if the alliance holds and if the war is short. Where the program actually stands is a more sober story than the January headline suggested. 8 prototypes exist. The first was shown publicly in January 2024.
Mobility trials covering 789 kilometres of road and cross-country running were completed in September 2025, gathering data on noise, vibration, and the effect of that vibration on the ammunition carried inside the turret. The gun was fired remotely before it was ever fired with a crew aboard. In May 2026 came the Battlefield Mission Serials, pushing cross-country driving, gunnery, and full crew drills together to feed engineering data back into the design baseline. A further trials phase followed in June. The formal test program still lies ahead of the tank. What has not happened is production. As of early 2026, series conversion of the remaining 140 tanks had not begun. The government had approved running production concurrently with development, a calculated risk taken to protect the 2027 initial operating capability date.
That milestone means 1 squadron of tanks with trained crews, not a fleet. Ministers have since stepped back from that position. The Defense Minister, Luke Pollard, told Parliament that manufacturing would begin once the tank's performance was proven, rather than being tied to a specific deadline. Supply chain delays, reportedly involving European and Israeli suppliers, have placed both the 2027 target and the 2030 full capability date under review. That delay matters because the heritage behind this program is real. In 1991, a Challenger 1 of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards destroyed an Iraqi tank at more than 5,000 meters. That remains the longest confirmed tank-on-tank kill in history. And the Challenger 1 force finished that war with no losses to enemy fire.
Near Basra in 2003, a bogged-down Challenger 2 was reported to have absorbed around 14 rocket-propelled grenades and a wire-guided missile, with its sights taking the worst of the damage. And it was back in action within hours. Ukrainian crews described the Challenger 2 as accurate enough to be a sniper rifle among tanks, and around 140 Challenger 2 hulls that will not be converted still have no publicly decided future. Some have already been scrapped as beyond economic repair. Others sit in storage while Ukraine continues to ask for armour. Britain decided to rebuild 148 tanks, and it made that decision to buy a NATO standard gun and a sovereign industry at the lowest price it could find. The gun works. The turret is a generation ahead of the one it replaces. The industrial argument is the strongest part of the case, because a country that cannot manufacture barrels cannot sustain a war. But the fleet carries no depth, the engine belongs to another era, and not one series tank has been converted yet. The Challenger 3 will be among the most capable tanks in Europe and among the smallest fleets on the continent, and both of those statements will be true at the same time. What happens next is measured in production rather than prototypes, and the first series conversion rolling out of Telford is the only milestone that now counts.